Here is a summary of The Last Lesson by Alphonse Daudet. Franz, the narrator of the story, was running late for school one day and was worried about getting a dressing down from his teacher, Monsieur Hamel. He had not learnt the rules of French participles like Monsieur Hamel had asked them to. As Franz hurried to school, he noticed a crowd in front of the village's bulletin board. Since he was already late for school, Franz did not stop to read the news. When he reached school, Franz couldn't hear the usual bustling sounds heard at the beginning of a school day. The stillness worried Franz even more, as he had hoped to slip in unnoticed in the commotion. Franz entered the classroom embarrassed and afraid, but was surprised when Monsieur Hamel kindly asked him to take his seat. It was only after he sat down that Franz noticed that Monsieur Hamel was dressed in clothes that he wore only on important days like inspection or prize days. There was a strange solemnness in the air. What surprised Franz even more was the sight of villagers occupying the back benches that would otherwise be empty. As Franz wondered what was happening, Monsieur Hamel informed them in a grave tone that this would be their last French lesson. Since Germany took over Alsace and Lorraine after the war, it had been ordered that only German would be taught in schools. Franz was shocked by the announcement and realized why the atmosphere was so serious that day. He was filled with regret and wished he had paid more attention to his studies instead of fooling around. His books no longer felt like a nuisance, and he realized he would miss the cranky old Monsieur Hamel. Then he heard his name being called out for recitation. Completely unprepared, Franz made several errors as soon as he began and stood there feeling terribly ashamed. Again, instead of scolding Franz, Monsieur Hamel spoke about the general tendency in the village to put off learning. The Prussians could now mock them for not knowing to speak and write their own language. Monsieur Hamel went on to say how it was not just Franz's fault. Franz's parents were guilty too, for they preferred that he work on a farm or at a mill than attend school. Monsieur Hamel confessed that he himself acted irresponsibly when he gave students holidays so that he could go fishing. Monsieur Hamel then spoke about how French was the most clear and logical language, and how they must guard the language. By doing so, they would have retained at least one part of their freedom. While they continued with the lessons for the day, Franz found himself paying attention to every word that Monsieur Hamel uttered. Monsieur Hamel, too, taught with a zeal like never before. At one point, Franz looked up from his work and saw Monsieur Hamel gazing at everything as if he was trying to take a mental photograph of everything he could see. It was a deeply emotional moment for Monsieur Hamel to leave behind 40 years of hard work. Even the villagers seemed to be overcome with emotion. Finally, when the lesson ended, Monsieur Hamel stood up to speak, but words were stuck in his throat. He only managed to write "Vive la France" on the blackboard and dismissed the class with a wave of his hand.